All right, so Cameron, let's talk about The Bear season one. Season two about to start, officially kicking off. This was a really surprise hit in the summer of 2022. A show on FX on Hulu. Pretty quick
Yeah, so
watch. Eight episodes, all about half an hour each. So you can get through it pretty quickly. But this was a breakout hit, and so I just want to sort of get your general thoughts. What you like about the first season? What you think about it? Just general impressions of that first go round.
yeah, I mean, I definitely thought it was quite good. Cards on the Table. I watched it rather recently. I mean, there was a lot of buzz about it last year. You're absolutely right. But kind of, I'm constantly feeling like there's so many things that I want to watch. What do you prioritize? But we started talking about it, so I put on the first season, and as you said, next thing I knew, I'd watched half of it. you know, and then continued on with the rest. And there is a bit of I mean, and I recall there was a lot of buzz in the world about that penultimate episode, episode 7, um, which I do want to talk about that a bit more. But just
Yeah.
in terms of general impressions, I thought it was really striking. The cast is really good, and one thing that I guess it does get me thinking about is how not every show has to be about some big end of the world type stakes or what have you, that there's all sorts of stories and all sorts of human stories that are really interesting and compelling. And to have one that's really just focused on um, a restaurant and working in a restaurant, almost all of it takes place in the restaurant. I mean, not all of it, but close to it. Um, yeah, and I thought it was or is a really compelling story. I'm looking forward to season 2. What about you?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It is almost almost refreshing to see a show that doesn't have huge stakes, doesn't have huge mysteries, these sort of grand questions. There's certainly a lot of themes and a lot of ideas we can look into, but just really as you said, a human story looking at struggle between things that you're just trying to accomplish on an everyday basis. And it seemed like every one of these characters had a piece of that. But really just a great human story and performances. I just can't say enough about it. You spoke about it already, but they're just excellent.
Right. I mean, and one thing I think is the stakes are big, right? I
Hmm.
mean, they try to parse it a little bit because
Yeah.
I think we both know what we meant in terms of what we just said.
Right.
It's not, the stakes aren't big like, oh, we have to keep the president from being assassinated and the terrorists have his daughter kidnapped, but the stakes are big in the way that the stakes of life are meaningful,
Hmm.
and we're getting that here. Now, what did you think of that episode 7? Because this really was quite distinctive.
It was so episode 7, if you recall, if you've seen the series, was a 20-minute one shot, almost mini play within the confines of the back of the house of the restaurant. And it really hit with me because I think I wrote a recap piece this week about season one. We're talking about it as stress TV. This was stress TV episode right here. I mean, you see
Yeah,
nonstop, non-cut, person to person, how it's all interacting. Very short, but very powerful in terms of what they tried to accomplish, I think.
yeah. I mean, it quite literally made me anxious, and I didn't enjoy it.
Exactly.
Um, it was good. I am a little worried because there's some reviews out of season 2 right now, and a couple of them are talking about it being even more stressful than season 1.
Oh boy.
And
Oh
I don't
boy.
know. I don't know if that's true, but I'm a little worried because I have to recognize that as a really good episode of television, but it's not one that I particularly enjoyed. And part of it is, you say one shot, but it's one take anyway.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that they're doing it all with a kind of handheld cam style. I think that feeds into what they're doing in that episode, which is kind of presenting this hectic, chaotic,
Yeah.
terrible, terrible day, in the back of the house, and everything falls apart by the end of it. And I think the fact that it was shorter
Yeah.
by a little bit too, also kind of fed into that theme in a way,
Yeah.
because when we talked about working in a restaurant, which I think you said you haven't worked in a restaurant,
Correct.
which fair enough. I have a little bit, but one of the things that's striking, I can pull on from my personal experience, is say, going to work at a restaurant where we're busy, we're slammed all day, and like waiting tables. That day is just over before you know it because you're just constantly going, and you can have the sense of a good day because everything's working, you're on top of it. What we got though in that episode was the absolute opposite, which
Right.
happens sometimes where it's not just that one thing goes wrong, but everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And that there can be that kind of domino effect or just sort of avalanche. And I mean, I never had an experience in real life that was as bad as what we see in that episode, because I mean, like, this city storms out, people are quitting,
Yeah.
but things that came reasonably close, and I did think it was powerful.
I thought it was a good parallel to some of the themes of the show, right? Carmy talks throughout about for the restaurants just hanging by a thread financially. The people in it are hanging by a thread emotionally, just sort of the what they've dealt with the loss of Michael. And Sydney introduces this new thing, this delivery service or this pickup option. And she made some mistakes setting it up, which causes the chaos. But it just sort of was representative of, I thought, introducing one little element to this thing that was just hanging on. And Carmy knew that would almost destroy them. And they did. They had to shut everything down, at least on that day. So just sort of emblematic of that. Yeah.
I think if I interpreted that right, that all that they were supposed to be introducing was the electronic system.
Yeah.
This is very old school place, the beef, blah, blah, blah. And that, so you're going to have this electronic system putting in things through the iPad, through the touchscreen, which, I mean, 20 years ago, when I was working in a restaurant, we had touchscreens. They weren't iPads, but,
Yeah.
So, I had the feeling they were just putting into place that kind of system. Now, the way this would work is you pull up that touchscreen, you'd hit in order, right? And then it prints out a ticket there at the expediter station.
Yeah.
Which is where Carmy is. He gets overwhelmed with tickets because Sydney didn't turn off the possibility for pre-orders.
Okay, that was my question. Is sort of how did that work in terms of what exactly did she do, but she didn't turn off the option for people to order ahead of time.
That's what I like. She was supposed to turn, and I mean, I don't know, like, really, they have that many potential customers, but on that day, as they were saying that they did, and that somehow they had all of these people putting in all of these pre-orders, and so they're immediately behind. He's overwhelmed. He freaks out. He kicks into asshole mode,
right?
And everything just boils over.
Yeah.
Which I did think it was interesting, the whole kind of theme. You're mentioning this, right? His brother, Michael's left him this restaurant. We had a bit about their history, but then at least it seemed what Carmy wants to do is to fix the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that's thematically resonating with his fraught relationship with his brother, Michael, I guess, in particular.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. And we really see, I think it's in episode 8, it begins with this monologue from Carmy talking about his brother. And we learn about this history and we learn about their relationship and how that relationship had really broken and fractured. And there was none by at the end. And so Carmy, knowing that he will never be able to repair that with his brother, has now turned him into, motivation of trying to repair, to fix, to make right the restaurant that his brother cared so much about. Yeah, it was a good theme to me to try to hit on. I liked how they use that background, but we only see Michael for 5 minutes, right, in the whole series. And so, but even still, you could see sort of the power that he had over the family, and that even in that scene that we sort of see Carmy for looking up to him He'll never be able to get that back, so he's trying to get it back through the restaurant.
Right. So, I mean, at least I was struck. You might disagree, but to some degree, this seemed very unhealthy, that psychologically speaking. And I think,
Sure.
we have a sister, Sugar.
Yeah.
She has a real name. That's like his nickname for his sister.
Natalie, I think.
Natalie, okay.
Yeah.
But she's I think she's representing that,
Yeah.
view, but I actually agree with her. I mean, the show centers on Carmi as the protagonist, who naturally would tend to kind of follow his way of thinking in terms of the framing. But if you take a step back from it, and it's hard to disagree that it was really an unhealthy kind of thing that he was doing. And now I wonder, as the season ends, so now they're going to close down the Beef and they're going to open a new restaurant called the Bear. I don't know. Do you think that is that landing for you is still kind of psychologically unhealthy? If you agree with me on that, or does it feel different?
I feel that what we saw Natalie Sugar's character do all season was try to get Carmi to feel something, to open up, to express what he's thinking or feeling or seeing or what what he is, what's happened because of the loss of Michael. And he just won't do that with her much. He won't do that with the rest of their family. He's doing it through the restaurant. So is that something that's psychologically unhealthy? Probably, because we saw in that episode 7 that when that fractures and breaks down, he loses it. He becomes, the Joel McHale, just total asshole chef. So it likely is something that's unhealthy if we look at it in that sort of macro sense. But yeah, I felt that Sugar was kind of always that character trying to draw him back to the right, the middle, the thing that he should be doing, and he just wanted to focus more on the restaurant.
Right. Well, to put more of a point maybe on what I'm thinking is something like this, that he wants to fix the restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, what he really wants to fix is his relationship with his brother Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he can't fix his relationship with his brother Michael because Michael's dead.
Right.
Michael's an addict. Michael commits suicide. And there's that whole thing hanging there as well. I mean, to avoid going on too much of a tangent, sorry. I think that there's some parallel where it's okay, well, so he wants to fix the restaurant, but what he really wants to fix is a relationship with Michael. But he can't fix his relationship with Michael. But he can't fix the restaurant either. Or at least that's the position that Sugar takes, I think, throughout. Yeah. And that also seems to be the position they're getting from Oliver Platt's character, Jimmy, right? This thing's so far gone. You should just sell it to me. And of course, he has an interest in that happening. But it's not clear that he's wrong, But then you get the whole thing with the spaghetti sauce and the money in the spaghetti sauce. And I don't know. I mean, I guess, first of all, just how did you interpret that in terms of where the money came from and how this leads them to their new plan and all of that?
Yeah, what Cameron's referring to is obviously the sort of final scene where Carmi reads this note his brother left him that had a recipe for family style spaghetti that called for use of a specific type of tomato, and then those tomato cans that he goes and finds are just wads and wads of cash.
Yeah, there's a nice little throwback actually, right?
Yeah,
because when he first is taking over the restaurant, he asked, why is he getting the small cans?
Right.
And then he finally finds that note. There's something weird there too. Like it was behind the locker. Richie found it, didn't give it to him, put it back, finally gives him to him. I don't know what Michael's plan was as far as the note goes, but it specifically says to use the small cans. Then he finds all this money.
And that's, there's sort of two interesting questions there. Number one, Richie's obviously a traditionalist. He doesn't want the things to change. He doesn't want the restaurant to budge at all. And so I think he knows or senses that there's something in that letter that will turn this restaurant finally over to Carmi. And he just doesn't want Carmi to get that. He doesn't want that to actually happen. He wants it to just sort of stay the same. I think the way I described it in my piece this week was Richie's home life is so terrible he wants something with some consistency, even if it's this crazy chaotic consistency that he has with the restaurant. But yeah, you asked a question about the sort of the money and sort of the intention there. Does that mean that Michael was planning for a long time his death? I just don't know. I mean, clearly he was trying to save to pay down that debt, but was he pointing towards doing that all along? It's hard for me to say.
I'm curious. I don't know if we'll get. I mean, I kind of hope we get some more information here because, what there's a seed of is there's a bit where Carmi's asking about these payments to a particular company, and no one knows what it is, and so on and so forth. So I don't know, like what was going on there exactly.
I do hope we get more of that, because it's thrown at you in the last 6 minutes, literally, and then no real explanation there.
Yeah, right. They just find a whole bunch of money and they're surprised, you know. And I guess it gives the implication they'll be able to get
that's the way I took it. Pay Jimmy back with that.
Yeah. We were going to talk about Sydney in that regard too, because as I think I mentioned before, she basically quit in the previous episode 7, penultimate episode. But she is coming back. She's coming back to get her final paycheck, and they're all finding the money. But then it very much seems like it moves very quickly in those closing scenes to her being on board again. And what do you think about Sydney and her motivations as a whole? I guess is my real question.
Yeah, I think that Sydney clearly wanted to work for someone as talented as Carmi. I think that part is clear, but sort of beneath that, she wants to work with someone who can respect her talent, respect what she is able to do, and also I think respect the fact that she could potentially be equal someday, right? You sort of saw this Joel McHale as the chef and Carmi relationship, where it was the general and the soldier, right? There's no equality there. I think she wanted something where she could get on the same page with someone like Carmi, and she respects his talent, but also she did respect who he was as a human. And then once he reaches back out to her, that's that sort of smallest of all the branches to get her to at least come back and see the check, and she sort of sees what's happening, and he asks her input. Once he asks for her input on what the new place would look like, so it's kind of a line that's, some people might have missed. He asked for her what it should be like if they have something new. She gives the input. He agrees. I think they're on board together at that point.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to follow them now, trying to make a new restaurant. They're calling the Bear. So then that gives us at least 3 points of reference for the name of the show, right? That Carmi is nicknamed Bear, which maybe also plays on their last name, Berzatto.
Yeah, I think that's the implication. Yeah.
They're going to be naming the new restaurant the Bear. Cool. But then we have these scenes in season 1 where he's standing off with a bear on the highway and so on. How did you interpret those?
You can almost think of it like what you said. It's his family. He's got these tremendous issues he has to face with that family right in front of him, right? So he's got Michael's death. He's got Sugar, a reluctant owner who is constantly pressuring him to do different things. Richie's not family, quote unquote, but he is part of that. And I just took it as he is constantly facing this threat of what that family name, what the family has done, what they've been, who they've been, what that restaurant has been for so many years. So sort of he has to stare that thing down and decide which one's gonna win inevitably, him or this past, this history, this family. And I think that in the end, we'll see as they develop this new place what ends up happening. But that was just my read on it. Not sure if you had a different one.
No, I mean that's better than I had. Really, no, I think that's very interesting. I mean, clearly it represents something about his stress, his internal turmoil, his fear, his anger. All of that. But I think you're absolutely right to tie that to the weight of the past and grappling with all those family dynamics and all of that. I mean, I can tell you what he says in that one monologue, which I think is when he's at one of the Al-Anon meetings,
Right.
about what led him to pursue this life as a gourmet chef and all of this. Was tied up in that already.
Yeah.
And so I wonder about I don't know. I think that in the background, that's maybe the big theme, is how to deal with this past, and in particular his relationship with Michael,
Correct.
which already wasn't good, and then he went off and had the grind of being a chef, but found some solace in that grind, but then totally lost touch with Michael, and then now he's, I don't know. It's I'm looking forward to see what they do in season 2 for sure.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that and interested to see what happens, because we've talked so much about this show centered around the back of the house, the chaos of the restaurant, the chaos of preparing these meals. If you've seen any trailer or read anything about this, you know clearly that this season is about building and starting a new place. So we're likely not going to have much of that, and kind of curious where you think that's going to go, and if they can recreate some of that tension and some of that apprehension that they that they did so well without that environment there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so, and at least I would expect that there will continue to be these elements of the past and so on. I don't know how much it will do, with Michael specifically, or more generally, but I mean, the general overarching thing too is that he left, and now he's come back home, as it were, right? From watching the trailer, it kind of looks like Sugar's going to be in season 2 more,
correct,
than she was in season 1, but we'll see. You never know how they cut trailers. Bob Odenkirk's supposed to show up.
I can't wait. What is he going to be? Who's he going to be? I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bob Odenkirk. I know you are too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be he's got range.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know that I see him as like an Uncle Jimmy, sort of heavy on this thing, but could be who knows? Could be a rival restaurant chef or something who trying to shut him down. Who knows?
I was going to wager bad guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but maybe he's not a bad guy. He's a good guy, or anything in between. So, well, it's been good. Did you have other thoughts about season 1 you wanted to hit on before we wrap this up?
I think that's it. I revisited it recently. Looking forward to season 2, and just found it just as powerful as when I watched it the first time. I think our plan is to spend the next 2 weeks. We'll touch on season 2 in various capacities. So the next time you'll hear from us, we'll be touching on some of the maybe general elements of season 2 and diving into what we've seen so far.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so thanks everyone for listening here to the TV Obsessive Podcast. Again, I'm Cameron Crane, executive editor. Go to tvobsessive.com, read things. You follow the site on Facebook, on Twitter. You should be able to find it relatively easily on both of those places. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Cameron CC. That's easy if you know how to spell my name. If you don't, you can figure it out. I'm not going to sit here and spell my name on the podcast for you. Ryan, you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, please. I've got a lot of stuff, including a recap of season 1, as I said, up on the site right now. You can find me on the TV Obsessive website, also at Cable Box Score on Twitter. Encourage you to find all those sites, all those socials. And hey, wherever you listen to the podcast, give us a like, give us a review. We love to sort of hear from you. We love to get some feedback and sort of help this thing grow. We are all over the place. We're on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Audible, Amazon, Overcast, Podbean, you name it. You can probably find us there. We're going to be back next week, episode 3, diving into The Bear season 2 and touching on a few other things. So thanks, Cameron. Looking forward to talking with you next time.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. I'll see you next time we meet next week, whatever it is. Okay.
That's right.
All right.